Over the past 2 years, you guys have watched us build our tiny home gym, our shed over here, our new paver patio, our kitchen over here, but I gotta show you a dirty little secret we've been hiding, and it's this space. It's terrible.
This part of the yard has really become a junkyard over the past couple years. We really just throw all of our crap here and just let it sit there, so it's time to fix this up. The plan's gonna be to level out this hill right here and put a shed on top of it that's 8 feet wide, then add a paver path walkway right here that has built-in LEDs. So we're gonna take all of our junk and put it on another part of our yard, so there's more junk somewhere else.
Iron Man?
No, you know that guy with the little things and he like does...
Wolverine?
No. What's his name? The guy that snaps his fingers and then the world ends? What's his name? Theranos.
I don't know about that one.
You don't know who Theranos is? I'm gonna snap my fingers and all the stuff's gonna be gone.
Inevitable.
Thanks to good old editing, the yard magically cleaned itself. Next, we hit up the hardware store so we can pick up some supplies. Let's get to work. We used a metal rake to get rid of some of the grass and weeds, then used a tape measure and some good old-fashioned spray paint so we can mark the ground so we know exactly where to dig. We basically need to flatten this area out, but since the ground slopes down toward the fence, we don't want the dirt to be pressed against the fence and rotted out over time, so we're basically building a small retention wall. To glue the blocks together, we're using this construction adhesive that's made for masonry, making sure everything's level and just repeating the same process over and over until they're all installed. Now that the cinder blocks are installed, we're gonna put some of this rebar around the whole thing, so then we can go ahead and add some cement, concrete. I don't know what it's called, but let's do it. We mix together some of this high-strength concrete to hopefully keep these cinder blocks together for the long run.
Now we have to fill this entire space up with rocks, and we have 1,800 pounds of it, so this is not going to be fun.
This was a workout, but luckily we didn't have to go into the store and get it in person. We ended up getting it delivered from Lowe's, and it was only like 30 bucks. We poured wheelbarrow after wheelbarrow into what seemed to be a never-ending pit. We also filled it with a bunch of broken pavers that we had laying around from a previous project, which in turn helped us get rid of some of the junk that we had laying around. After filling up the endless pit, we compressed all the rocks with this tamper. We're adding these pavers on top of our platform because this is what our shed is going to live on top of. We made sure they were all level with each other, then started cutting down some pressure treated 2x6s so we can start building the frame for our shed. We put screws and nails into the frame, then carried it into the backyard so we can set it on top of the pavers. We finally finished building out the platform. Now we're gonna try and frame out all the walls by the end of the day because we're expecting rain in a couple of days and we really just want to finish this up before it comes. We cut out all the 2x4s that we needed so we can start framing the walls. We started by building out the back wall first because it's going to be pushed up against the fence and we won't be able to access it once it's fully installed. So we went ahead and installed the siding and painted it completely before we put it onto the platform. We used exterior paint and it pretty much dried instantly because when we did this it was about 110 degrees out, which was super fun to do. I'm kidding. I'll probably never do a project like this in the middle of August again. But after adding 2 layers, we brought it over to the platform and got it installed. We then repeated the same process with the sidewall because it's going to be pushed up against the fence, then brought it over to the platform and screwed everything together. The other framed walls don't get the same kind of siding because we're planning on installing a different kind of siding to make it look a little nicer because this is the side that's going to be seen the most. We added a double top plate to lock the walls together, then made the measurements so we can cut out our rafters. This was an intimidating process to do, but after a few measurements, we got it figured out, cut out our bird mouths, and went ahead and installed all of our rafters. We spaced them apart 16 on center, and it only ended up taking us about 45 minutes to get them all installed. After installing the rafters, we added some metal hangers to each one. We then got onto the roof and installed some blocking on the sides so there can be some overhang. This was sketchy, but thankfully I got everything screwed into place so I can move on to the next step of the project. It was officially time to install the roof. So we cut down a bunch of pieces of 1/2-inch OSB and brought them onto the roof one by one. Since there was multiple pieces, I made sure to stagger them to help make the shed more rigid. We had to install drip edge before installing the actual shingles, and I'll be the first to admit that I'm not very good at installing drip edge. I'm sure I'm missing a couple tools in order to do this, but I only install drip edge about once a year, so that's probably the reason why I'm not too good. After the drip edge, we roll down this layer of ice and water shield. This stuff basically waterproofs the roof before the shingles go on to make sure there's no leaks. Shingles are heavy. I can't imagine having to carry hundreds of shingles onto a roof for a living. Luckily for me, it only took 2 packs. I laid the first shingle in the bottom right corner and popped 5 nails into it. I then cut the next shingle a little smaller, laid it over the first one, and continued that process, making a stair-step pattern. I didn't use a nail gun because the roof is so small, but Cooper was down at the bottom trying to figure out where all the noise was coming from. After the shingles were installed, we used one of these curved blades to cut off the excess. I'll link it in the description below along with a bunch of other products that we've used. The next day, we cut down some more OSB so we can start adding the sheathing to the sides. I screwed the panels in every 10 inches or so, then basically just repeated the same process over and over until all the panels were completely installed. It's time to install the soffit, and we want it to be black, but they didn't have any black F channels at the store. They only had them in white, so we picked up some black spray paint and we're gonna get them painted up. After painting them and letting them dry, we went ahead and installed them on the perimeter of the entire tiny home. I mean shed. I then cut down a bunch of pieces of this black perforated soffit, which came black so we didn't have to spray paint it. They basically slide into this F channel, then you nail the other side and continue that same process over and over until you have this beautiful looking soffit. After a long day of doing this, it was completely installed and it was time to install the fascia. I was only able to find fascia cap that was made for 2x6s, so I had to cut it down. I found this automatic 10 snip cutter which connects directly to your drill. It made life a lot easier. I'll go ahead and link it in the description below as well. We then hammered on the fascia cap and I gotta admit, it turned out pretty damn nice. After we finished installing the fascia cap and knew exactly how we were going to power the shed, it was officially time to install the siding. I added some of this flashing tape to all the exposed OSB edges, then cut out these cement board siding pieces so I can start trimming out the shed. Once the shed was all trimmed out, I started cutting out my siding pieces and installed them in between all the trim pieces. I popped a few nails into each one, then used these Greco gauges to space them apart evenly. These are really cool because they do all the measuring for you, you can adjust the height, and it's basically just plug and play and it makes the job much easier. They're not sponsored, but I'll go ahead and link them in the description below just in case you want to get one. We finished up some of the siding, but these boards are made out of cement board and they let off a lot of dust when you cut them. So I picked up a respirator and some of these scientific goggles right here to help protect me because I don't want this shed to kill me. While I finish the siding, I'm gonna let you know exactly how much I spent on all the materials. We spent $444 on siding, $319 on rocks, cinder blocks, and cement, $312 on OSB and 2x4s, $609 on roofing and fascia, and just about $400 on miscellaneous like paint, nails, hinges, caulking, and a bunch of other stuff. That brings the grand total to just over $2,000. After we installed the siding, we added a bunch of caulking to the corners of all the siding.
We realized we don't like that siding. It's too ugly from the road. So we're going to remove all the pickets and add the other type of siding instead.
The siding was installed, so it was finally time to paint. My wife normally does all the painting, and over the years, she's become something like a Bob Ross, but in a female version, and without the afro. We decided to go with this gray color to match the fireplace that we built in a previous video, just to kind of keep the aesthetics looking nice and clean. We finished the siding, finished the paint. Now we're going to install these LED lights and power them with our home power Jackery 3600 Plus. After installing the lights, we had this leftover flooring just sitting in our garage, so we figured we're just gonna use it. It's definitely overkill for a shed that's just gonna hold some tools, but might as well just install it in here than let it sit in my garage for the next 17 years. My wife gave me a Pinterest idea. We cut out these pieces of wood and we're gonna make a shelf for these totes right here. This is a super easy rack to make and only cost me $33 for the 2x4s and $67 for the totes. I'm gonna go ahead and put the building plans in the description below just in case you guys want to build one for your garage. After screwing everything together, we went ahead and brought it over to the shed. We installed the racks for the totes and we realized that it takes up way too much space, so we're just gonna take it and put it onto this side of the wall right here and then build some more storage on that side. These shelves are also super simple. It's just some regular 2x4s and some leftover OSB from the roof. But we don't need anything fancy, it's just gonna hold some tools. We next installed a bunch of 2x4s into the wall because my wife gave me another Pinterest idea. I angled all these 2x4s, which end up working perfect to put my caulk in. Oh, and my spray paint bottles and a bunch of my paint cans too. We're now gonna build a door, that way Rose can float on it. We're building 2 doors because we're fans of the way that French people do it. AKA we're building French doors because we just like the way it looks. We just made some simple measurements, cut some 2x4s down, screwed them all together, then flipped it and screwed some siding boards to the front side of it, cut down some trim pieces, glued them and nailed them onto the front side of it to give it a nice finished look, then repeated the same process all over again until I had 2 doors. We filled in all the nail holes and cracks with wood putty, then sanded it really well so Picasso can go ahead and do her thing. I mean Bob Ross. After she painted them and we let them dry for a couple hours, we installed some hinges, then brought it over to the shed and got them installed. And because we both have our masters in mathematical engineering, we make our cuts so precise that this happened. The door is too big. Since the door was too big, we had to pull out our table saw and cut off just 1/4 of an inch. But then we brought it back over to the shed, got it installed, and to our surprise, it fit perfectly. We then added some hardware and locks, made sure it worked, and just like that, the entire shed was all finished up. My wife and I are attempting to make the side yard look much better because it currently looks like crap. We only have a $3,500 budget, and since everything is so expensive, we're gonna have to get creative to make this side yard look nice. We rented a tiller so we can break up the dirt to make it easier to move around. The rental ended up costing us $70 for 24 hours, leaving us with $3,430 left to finish this build. Once we finished with the tiller, I used this hand tamper to compress the dirt so we can build a wall.
We're going to build a wall.
For the base, we're using these Paver bases that we picked up from Lowe's and just cutting them down to size with a utility knife. I applied some sand at the base and leveled it out the best that I could, then put the Paver base directly on top of it and started building my wall. These Paver bases are $13 a piece and we needed 45 of them for this build, which ended up costing us $585, which is kind of expensive, but it ends up saving you a ton of time because you don't have to buy as much leveling sand, so it ends up washing out at the end. Once the first row of blocks was installed, we picked up some of this construction adhesive to glue on the second row. This will help keep the wall together so it doesn't separate over time. We made sure the wall was level, then repeated the same process over and over until the entire wall was completely built out. The wire that I'm building the wall on top of is not an electrical wire for all you electricians, it's just a Comcast wire for my internet. The wall was installed and it was officially time to move on to the next step of the project. We tilled the entire pathway one more time before returning it, then rented an automatic tamper to compress the dirt down really well. This tamper ended up costing us $85 to rent, bringing the total to $2,760 to complete the rest of the build. After we finished tamping, I used this 2x4 to screed off some of the high spots. We had to install some of this weed barrier before bringing in the leveling sand because it helps hold the leveling sand in so it doesn't wash away over time. To make sure the sand is nice and flat for the paver bases, we're using these pieces of PVC so we can screed a 2x4 on top of them. I made sure to pitch the pieces of PVC downhill so the water flows away from the house because we plan on installing a drain and we want the water to go directly into it. I carefully laid the paver bases on top of the sand, then it was officially time to install the pavers. These pavers ended up costing us $6 a piece and we needed 88 of them, costing us a total of $528, leaving us with $2,232 to complete the rest of this build. Before we continue laying pavers, we need to build another wall. This wall is going to help hold the sand in so when we lay our pavers, it doesn't wash away. I dug down along the entire string to keep a nice straight line. Then my wife came up with the fantastic idea of transplanting some grass, because our grass sucks. It's probably because of the dogs, but don't tell her that. I used the metal rake to prep the surface where the wall is going to go. Then use the hand tamper to compress the dirt really well. To move some of the sand to the backyard, I picked up this really cool Cobalt wagon. I went to buy a regular wheelbarrow and found out they're close to $200, so I ended up just buying one of these because it can hold up to 1,500 pounds and it's a lot easier to move around. I'm not going to include this in the building budget, but I did end up paying $200 for it, which in my opinion is totally worth it because it'll last me a long time. I'm going to go ahead and link it in the description below just in case you guys want to get one. Now for the price of the blocks to be able to build the walls, we ended up spending $700 in total, plus a $20 delivery fee from Lowe's, bringing the total to $1,510 to be able to complete the rest of this build. After we finished the first layer of the second wall, we went ahead and continued to install pavers. We now have to install a friend's drain right here, but unfortunately this flower bed is in the way, so we're gonna remove it. We planted watermelons, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and nothing grew. But we did get a lot of banana peppers. The thing is, we don't eat banana peppers.
We have a lot of dirt, so we're going to relocate this dirt and move it over there because that's going to be a flower garden anyways. But first we have a problem. We need to line the fence over here with cinder blocks so the dirt is not pressing up against the fence. So all because of this French drain, we need to move the flower bed garden. But the flower bed garden has too much dirt in it, but we need to put the dirt over here, but we can't put the dirt over here until the cinder blocks get there, so it's a spiral.
We spent the next few hours emptying this raised flower bed so we can put the dirt into the other flower bed. We dumped wagon after wagon and it seemed like the dirt would never end. But it ended up working out great because we plan on putting plants into the new flower bed and this dirt still has fertilizer in it, plus it saved me a couple $100 and a trip to the hardware store.
Eufy just sent us their newest security cameras, so now I need Manny to stop what he's doing and install them for me.
I can hear you.
Good. Can you install them for me?
I guess. Let me finish digging this hole first and then we'll get them installed.
All right, deal.
All right. They sent us their eufyCam S4, which comes with a built-in solar panel, which only needs 1 hour of direct sunlight to keep the camera charged for a full day. This is a 2-in-1 bullet PTZ triple lens that can do 360-degree tracking. It comes with this removable battery that's rechargeable, but if it ends up dying for some reason in the future, you can easily replace it. The installation process is probably the easiest out of any camera in the market. You just screw the mounting bracket to anywhere that has a Wi-Fi connection, clip on the camera, install the bracket for the solar panel, then screw on the solar panel, plug it into the camera, and that's it. Now for the fun stuff. When you download the Eufy app, you can move the camera around with the click of a button. It also has a 3x zoom mode, can film in 4K, and has a ton of other options like AI tracking, night vision, infrared mode, and it even has a floodlight. If the camera senses a person, the lens will literally follow them and track their every move. It also has an 8x zoom, two-way audio, and can connect to the Homebase 3 so all your cameras can seamlessly be on one app. I'm gonna link a 15% off discount code in the description below, just in case you guys want to get one. We wanted to connect the pathway to the patio that we built in a previous video, so we had to turn it. Since the yard slopes a lot right here, we had to add a step where the two pathways would connect. We made sure to slope the pathway downhill to make sure for proper drainage, but then we basically just repeated the same process over and over until the entire pathway was completely installed. The last two pavers were way too big, and we also had to cut a couple other blocks in half to cap off our walls, so one of my amazing neighbors came by and cut them for me. I glued on the last two pieces to make sure that they would stay in place properly, then glued on the end caps to my wall. I then swept the dirt off of the other wall and finished that up as well. We ended up using 12 bottles of this construction adhesive to glue all these blocks together, which ended up costing us $108, plus we spent $62 on this weed barrier, leaving us with $1,340 to finish up the rest of this build. After we finished installing all the pavers and blocks, we had to install a drain. But we didn't have anywhere for the water to go, so I just decided to dig this massive hole. The water from the drain will go down this pathway right here and into the hole, hopefully making sure that we have some proper drainage. I used some of this PVC glue to glue on this 2-inch PVC to the French drain. Then set it into the hole and filled in the bottom part with dirt to make sure that it doesn't move. We then filled the hole with rocks so that the PVC pipe can drain into it. This hole took 2,000 pounds of rock to fill and ended up costing us $60 plus another $110 for the French drain and the PVC, leaving us with $1,170 to complete this build. Once the hole was filled with rocks, we covered it up with dirt until it looked like nothing had happened. Once the French drain was installed, we had to build a concrete border around the pavers and the French drain. We picked up some 2x4s and made sure that they were nice and level and made a form. I then mixed together some of this Quickcrete, which is what we're going to use to fill the forms. This will hold in the pavers to make sure the sand doesn't get washed out, and it'll also lock in the drain. Once the forms were filled, I started to work it with my trowel, and every few minutes I kept coming back to it to work it into place as it hardened up. We ended up using 3 80-pound bags of concrete, which ended up costing us $25, leaving us with $1,145 to complete the rest of this build. We let it sit overnight, then took the forms off, and we were super happy at the way that this thing's turning out. We picked up these tracks that we're going to mount onto the wall so it can have underglow LEDs. We spread a bead of construction adhesive, then put the track on top of it. I then spread some more adhesive so I can install the toppers, which will lay on top of the LED track, holding it into place. The toppers overhang off the wall a little bit, so the track fits perfectly under it, so once we install our LEDs, it'll have a nice underglow. These tracks ended up costing us $132, the LEDs were $70, and all the toppers were $397, leaving us with $546 to complete the rest of this build. And I'm going to be linking all the materials that we used in this project in the description below. We spray painted a few pieces of rebar because half of them are going to go into the ground, and since they're made out of bare metal, we don't want them to rust out super fast. I hammered some rebar into the wall that we made earlier, then filled it with concrete to help strengthen it so it doesn't move over time. While the concrete dried, Hope and I took a ride over to Lowe's to pick up some plants. We picked up 6 of these massive bushes that we can plant into this flower bed, which will give us a little privacy and really tie everything in together. And by the way, shout out to Lowe's for sponsoring this video. If you guys need any home improvement products, visit the nearest home improvement Lowe's store near you. These bushes ended up costing us $360. We also spent $80 on some other plants, leaving us with $106 to complete the rest of this build. Once we had all the bushes installed, we swept the pavers really well so we can install the polymeric sand. This stuff goes in between the pavers, and once it gets wet, it activates the adhesive inside of it, making sure that the pavers get locked into place. I taped off the French drain to make sure none of the polymeric sand gets inside of it. Once all the cracks were filled, I used my hand tamper to make sure all the polymeric sand would fill in the cracks properly. We then used the leaf blower on the lowest setting to get rid of any of the excess sand. The next step was to carefully wet the pavers and set the garden hose on the mist setting. Then wait about 5 minutes, rinse it off one more time, and that's it. We really didn't like the way the cinder block wall was looking behind the plants, so we picked up some more toppers to give it a more finished look. We just glued each one into place, and it really made everything flow together a lot better. We decided to add some black mulch to really sharpen up the look of this flower bed. My son then left his Fortnite Warzone to come help us out. This took us about an hour to do and 5 bags of mulch. It was now time to install these LEDs into the LED tracks that we installed earlier. These are pretty straightforward to install. The LEDs come with an adhesive strip and you just glue it onto the inside of the track. Once they were installed, we had to connect the wires. I slid some shrink wrap onto the wire, then crimped down the longer wire that'll lead to the power supply. These are 24-volt lights that come with a power converter, so you can plug them into 110. Once the wires were connected, I used my heat gun to install the shrink wrap, which will help waterproof the wire connection. I then snaked the wire to the nearest power supply, and that was it. To cap off the LEDs, the tracks came with these see-through pieces of plastic that you just clip on. Now that the LEDs are installed, I use my metal rake to grade the ground a little bit so I can install some sod. We poured some fresh topsoil on top of it so the grass will have something to root to. We then spread it out and started laying all of our pieces of sod. Our original budget for this build was $3,500, but we ended up going slightly over at $3,729, which in my opinion isn't the worst price, seeing that we did add a few extra things that we didn't have in the original plan, like the sod, the plants, and the LEDs. My wife and I are super happy at the way that this came out, but let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.